we've got all these lines between the tables. Now, these lines are showing me lineage. So it's saying, hey, there's this stage customer table, and it's using attributes, or it's referencing these three tables, region, nation, customer, into this table and then out to this table. Now I can open up any of these tables and I can see the metadata about this table, the columns and whatnot. And I can also see some column level lineage. So I can view column level lineage, and it's going to show me the path of data through this processing. So here, for example, there's a transform that's referencing the account balance and the marketing segment in this case statement. And so you can see that it's called out that these are source attributes to this attribute I've highlighted. And then it's subsequently being used in any downstream processing there. And I can start anywhere. I can start out here. I can see, okay, where's the customer key here actually ends up in the fact table. I can see the path of data from that point. Or I could start right over in the customer table and see basically an impact analysis. So I can see, well, what would happen if this field changes in this customer table? I can see the downstream processing effects of that. And I can also make changes. I can say, well, actually, if this comments field was a new field, I could propagate that field forwards through my pipeline. So I'm using this column level metadata, and I'm actually making changes using it. And you can see here, because we already had a comments field, it's added a comments one field at the bottom. And this becomes a really powerful artifact, because if you've got to try and support something at scale, you need to know where the data comes from and what you're doing to it. And you might not have built that system. So as we have a look at what this looks like at scale, switch over to a real world customer environment. Oh, is that telling me go away? Got it. That's great. Just telling me to refresh the page. Looks like we've done a little release. So this example here is showing me a real world customer data mart. So this is a sales data mart for a retailer, very large retailer actually, sells TVs and vacuum cleaners and whatnot. And you can see, oh my God, there's thousands of nodes on here. But we make this actually easy to consume. So you can see that it's quick for me to build, and very quickly you're going to end up with an environment like this. This is a sales data mart, so it takes sales data and inventory data and competitive data and pricing data, costing data, and works out the sales information and the profitability of this retailer at lots of different levels of aggregation. Now, rather than having a look at all of this all in one go, if I was developing in here, I'd probably work on a subgraph. And a subgraph allows me to save a subset of that total picture and say, well, I'm just interested in this pipeline here. And if I'm developing on this, I can just carry on and add new things in here or make changes into anything. It just narrows down the view of that sort of design canvas that we see with everything in it. And I can build up a whole library of these things. And it just makes my life easier rather than having to try and navigate and find these nodes amongst everything in that total graph. The other thing I can do is when I'm out here is I can filter down my view very easily as well. So you can see we've got a search up here. Let's say I'm interested in a particular table. So I've just put in this WGT, and now it's only going to show me tables with WGT in the name. So that's quick. Now, if I click on it, it's going to highlight that in my graph and buried in amongst all these other nodes down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable a filter at the top here. And I can drag this up onto that filter. And now we're just looking at that one table. And I can put a little plus sign on the left-hand side to say, well, show me all the predecessor steps, any tables that are referenced in the population of this table. And similarly, on the right-hand side, all the nodes where that data goes to. So now we've got a clearer picture of where this fits into any pipeline, which is useful to start with. But of course, we've also got that detailed information at column level as well. And I might decide to drill into here. And if I have a look at this store weighting calculation, I can see, Well, there's a case statement, there's a sum of a sum, so there's a windowed sum function. It's basically working out the proportion of sales for each product by store. So which store sells the most product, which is useful to know because if you run out of stock in a store that doesn't sell any of that product, you don't really care. But if you run out of product in a store that sells a lot, you do care. One of those stores is actually the online internet sales, so I'm kind of keen to know about that. Now, if I wanted to see this transform in a bit bigger window, I can just come over to the column editor and I can basically make it half the screen so I can see that transform. Just makes it nice and easy to look at. I can also have a look at that column level lineage, so I can just drill into that and show me what attributes are referenced in that transform, where do they come from, and then how is that being used? And you can see the store weighting calculation is actually being used for inventory weighting, and then that is then used, and I can follow its pathway through, just navigate my way around here to see, okay, it ends up in this KPI table out here, or KPI view.